We'll now move to the Honorable Minister for Health and Social Development and Territorial Member, the Honorable Carvin Malone.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to present here this afternoon. In fact, you would be well aware that I was scheduled to present earlier this morning, and as I was having buffering issues, I had to change plans. But before I start, I would like to again say I join with each of my colleagues in expressing words of condolences to all those persons who have passed within the past 2 months. Mr. Speaker, I'm well aware of the challenges that we have had as a result of the COVID-19. We had other ailments, we had other reasons, and persons have passed, but COVID-19 have dealt a significant blow to the people of the Virgin Islands, the region, and indeed the world. Mr. Speaker, we had families who have lost 3 and 4 members at a time. It is never easy. We've had communities that had 5 funerals. Never easy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we continue to come to grip with coronavirus, at the end of my presentation, or closing to the end of my presentation, I would give an update as to some of the situations as it evolved, even in today's world. Mr. Speaker, this is indeed a troubling period, a troubling time. And we cannot underestimate the effect that it has on our community, on our people, our society, and all aspects of life. But in the Virgin Islands, Mr. Speaker, I'm convinced that it is time that we bring hope to our people. We've had, we've gone through periods, Mr. Speaker, unlike any other in the past 100 years. I started this morning by saying that all through the world, we have challenges. Mr. Speaker, we were challenged, of course, by the earthquakes in Haiti. Have a tremendous challenge that we have. Mr. Speaker, we're challenged by the hurricanes that have gone through from Louisiana straight up to the northeastern seashores. We're challenged by the many states in the United States that are reaping the havoc of this. And I mentioned all of these because we are affected by them, Mr. Speaker. The shipping route, the cost of food, the cost of building supplies, the cost of getting transport from one area to another. They are all affected. So we are unavoidably linked to all of these areas. When we close down the shipping routes in the Gulf, if a hurricane were to pass through Florida and the shipments cannot move. We had one that was going towards Bermuda and then towards the United States. New York is flooded. Mr. Speaker, we are all part of it, but it lends to a bigger picture because I would like the people of the Virgin Islands to understand that there are 2 or 3 ways in which I will make my presentation today, because I had mentioned that this 11th sitting of the 3rd session began on the 12th of August. We are now 28 days into a single sitting. The 12 sitting have been put off about 4 times. And here we are at 6:30 on the 28th day, save for the fact that we had 7 days in which we sat, but we had to get prepared for them. Mr. Speaker, I present best when I liken it to certain circumstances because, and I will refer to these from time to time. The one that I started this morning and the one that I would basically announce today is the one where we are moving from west to east. And we have a herd of cattle that jumped out in the road or car overturned. We are in the pond. And by the time assistance afford itself, we are looking and people are wondering, well, how did you get over here? And you're telling them, well, there are 10 cows that jumped out in the road. And today you're finding none of them. They did not leave any evidence at all. Cows would normally leave evidence, but they walked away. They're grazing in another pasture. Mr. Speaker, I say this because the Virgin Islands, one past legislator says a great little nation. And indeed it is. But we are challenged. All politics is local, but the international politics come home to play locally. So we have to temper the expectation of our population, Mr. Speaker. I say so respectfully. We have to temper the expectation because if we continue to allow members of the parties opposite to speak as if none of these proverbial cows existed, then we will forever be battling the particular issues that we face as if what is before us did not, does not, and will not matter. Mr. Speaker, I am confident that it is somehow a written text, a written yardstick to almost confuse, if not detract, the persons. A smoke screen in some instances, in some of the areas of which, when we hear others speak, because let us examine, because I did some homework. Because I had to identify and I had to go and search in order for me to get folks to understand why I was overturned on the other side. I had to go and investigate some of these proverbial cows that were in the road. I found 10 of them, Mr. Speaker. Open registry. The Virgin Islands continue to be faced and have to come to grip. Although people might leave it off of the particular radar, 2023 is fast approaching. An open registry is an issue for the Virgin Islands. It is an issue that we are facing, we are battling, and will continue to battle. And I'll come as to why we are being distracted from zeroing in on that particular issue. Mr. Speaker, the whole concept of economic substance is something we have to continue to keep our minds on and come to grip with. It might sound international only, but in this, we are no small quote unquote players in the international world. So although it is international, it is still local politics, because if we don't ready ourselves for the opportunities that affords how we properly take full advantage of the opportunities that will be, afford itself on this concept of economic substance. If we fail big, because we have to get this done. There is a concept where the G20 come back to the whole concept of global tax reform, where, Mr. Speaker, the big nations have all come to grip with the facts. Not come to grip, but they basically think that we have all of their monies somehow stored away here. And this whole concept of making a global tax, which will have effects on our economies again, Mr. Speaker. That's the third proverbial cow in the road. Global tax reform, economic substance, open registry. We have the concept of Brexit. A lot of people, I mean, in the last 18 months, you haven't heard any of these. Brexit is still there. Folks are coming to grip with it. The funding that we used to get from the European community, one of the issues we talked about was whether or not we will be able to have that funding replaced. Mr. Speaker, it has been told to us that we will fund only those items that were opened, but new items, you will have to probably fend for yourself or go and find some other way in which you can get this. Brexit is out there. Fourth proverbial cow in the road. Then, of course, Hurricane Irma. We will get back to that. But, Mr. Speaker, the fifth cow in the road. I've identified 10 of them. Fifth cow in the road. A car is overturned, and people are asking, how did you get over here? Hurricane Irma, Mr. Speaker. Not to be outdone, and for the goodness and grace of God, it stayed a little bit south of us, but we were affected handsomely in every other way. Hurricane Maria. That's the sixth proverbial cow in the road. How did we get here, we say? Then, if that was not enough, then came the high level framework, which was boosted by loan guarantee pledges. Mr. Speaker, since coming into governance, this government has been battling the effects of this high level framework, which in fact makes specific mention to the protocols for effective financial management, which was signed on the 23rd of April, I think it is, 2012, negotiated by one of the negotiators sent was the immediate past premier and the now leader of the opposition. They had the UK eaten out of their hands when they were finished. We're now trying to locate the hands so we can reverse some of what was signed, so that we can then get the ratios to have some kind of equity, Mr. Speaker. because we battled from the 26th of February and still ongoing, overturning cars as we go, jumping in the middle of the road, Mr. Speaker, because funding for recoveries from catastrophic events and pandemics through loan funds, given the ratio limitations that we have, no nation is surviving it. The United Kingdom has printed $5 to $7 trillion. United States Virgin Islands have been granted millions of dollars. Other non-self-governing territories have been granted numerous millions of dollars from the administrating states. Mr. Speaker, we in the Virgin Islands have to go into our own means in getting most of this. And I want credit to all of the comments because I traveled during the break to St. John's for the very last trip of the vaccine program, which I'll speak about later. We're trying to get more, so fear not, everyone. We will add additional vaccine trips. I traveled to St. John because I thought it was important for us to do this. And through the grace and the mercies of God, we were able to get the cooperation of some of the school-aged children to be vaccinated through that program. We'll hear more about it. I have lots of pictures. So here we have another proverbial cow in the road, overturning our cars. Mr. Speaker, then of course we had the advent of the RDA and this wide scope of works that was handed to him. They say that they had the British eaten out of their hands when they went up to the particular area. The very same persons that caused us to be almost where we are the ones who in order to identify them, we will have to take out our DNA kits. Mr. Speaker, I'll get to that. The ninth proverbial cow in the road, global pandemic. Mr. Speaker, we were scheduled, Premier and I were scheduled together with the Ministry of Finance and all of the other cohorts of persons, experts, scheduled to go to the United Kingdom to see if we can lift some of the burdens of this loan guarantee document, this high-level framework that was coming on us. We could not go because a novel coronavirus had been identified in Wuhan, China. This particular virus was later, in March of 2020, declared a global pandemic. We are still in the throes of this global pandemic. $70 million later. We did not get the hundreds and millions of dollars that our other non-self-governing territories received. We did not get the particular thing. We did get a lot of assistance, yes. All of the vaccines that are necessary, a lot of the PPEs that are necessary, a number of other intangible services in terms of advice. But it will take dollars and cents to get us here. We are still pulling tens of thousands of documents to support what we did with the 40 million or the $70 million spent overall, some from Social Security and others from the particular consolidated fund. Mr. Speaker, the global pandemic is one of those, has been identified as one of those cows that overturned my car. Then you have the Commission of Inquiry based on the 1880 Act. I was trying to do some research as to who may have been the administrators back in 1880. And I know that my honorable colleague from the ninth, while I'm talking, will do his research in terms of who would have been the particular administrators back in 1880. We know what happened in 1834, and it was just what 50 years, short of 50 years later, that we have this Commission of Inquiry Act. Yes, it had a few amendments, 1957, 1963, and 1970 somewhat, non-substantive. So here we are in the throes of a commission of inquiry that can only best be described, as I have informed many a times, if we had called it a particular review of governance in the Virgin Islands for the past 70 years. Then we will then be best suited in terms of what it is. It is unfair. It is not right how it's being conducted. This 1880 Act must be reviewed. One will appreciate it cannot be reviewed in the middle of this particular inquiry, but it is quite telling, because each of the public officials from every one of the ministries are being tasked with providing over 200,000 pieces of documents. If a commission of inquiry is to be proper, it has to state exactly what is being inquired into. So I will tell of the many of the 2,000 or 3,000 public officials that are engaged in the Virgin Islands, then these 200 will be out there looking for whatever it is that they need to look for. And we were not helped. And Mr. Speaker, I'm going here only because at the end of the day, we can talk about potholes all day. We can talk about some of the issues, and we must, because we must get them correct. But if we don't find these 10 cows, then nobody will believe me that when we say these cows jumped out in the road and this is why my car is over here. Everybody think that we still have $70 million that we're spending somewhere else. They still think that we can go and take loans of another 100 million without it being affecting in terms of our particular protocols for effective financial management. They still think that you can that you have the financial services monies coming in, not knowing that between Brexit, the tax reform, the economic substance, and the open registry, that these cows are jumping out. So we're here to send a warning to all of the drivers headed from west to east. Danger ahead. There's a cow. 10 of them that I can identify so far. There are more that are challenging us as a people. And thank God on February 25th, the people put a Virgin Islands Party government in, because the honorable, one of our past legislator of blessed memory stood up against what she found was an unfair set of circumstances being hailed to her. And if you don't sign it, you can't get any money. And she said, no, I am here to defend my forefathers. I'm here to defend the people today and our people tomorrow. And if we do not come to grip with this, if we don't stop this in its track, Mr. Speaker, then we will spend the $400 million. We will extend the airports. We will rebuild the school. We will rebuild the Western Terminal. We would fix the airports in virgin water. We will fix dog hole. We will fix all of the infrastructure. But the price is that we will be not only administrating, we will be in on the ground. And you will jump when we say jump, and you will say, how high? Mr. Speaker, the story tells of the sheep, the wolf, and the shepherd, because the sheep, it is told, spends its entire life fearing the wolf, only to be eaten by the shepherd. Mr. Speaker, we have to come to grip that we have these issues that are facing us. And if we put our trust and if we listen only to the smoke screen, if we're detracted by the smoke screen, we will miss the fact that the next driver coming out will have his car overturned again. Open registry, economic substance, global tax reform, Brexit, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, high level framework, RDA and its wide sweeping scope at the time. We have been able to make adjustments. Global pandemic, commission of inquiry, ongoing. Which one of these have been put to rest? Is it open registry? Have it solved? No. Economic substance, still there. Global tax reform, a lot of people don't even know about it, but it is here and we have to deal with it. Brexit, even those who caused it, they're running away from it, and we are going to be affected by it. Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, we are still doing our repairs. High level framework, we're still under the thralls of it. The particular wide sweeping scope of the global pandemic, is it solved? No, we're still living in it. The commission of inquiry, let's go and let's deal with some of that. The, you know, Mr. Speaker, there's some school of thoughts which says you don't remind people as to some of these things that people have done. But if you don't, because of people, once you get one thing solved, you have to bring out some DNA kits, because you see, folks who caused you to be here are the ones who will be leading the charge as to finding out. They it is funny. They have you lost in the jungle. Have you lost in the jungle? They put you there and then leading a search party for you. This is what is going on. Leading a search party for you. So we look in terms of you have some articles that came out in the international press. One was headlined British Virgin Islands at a crossroad as outgoing governor decries corruption. Now you hear the leader of the opposition today, and he's talking about how people are scared. People are scared to talk. People, I shudder, because it is the same language. Now listen, the immediate past governor went, and it is reported in an article, in an emotional Facebook video post to the BVI's 30,000 inhabitants, he accused the country's government of overseeing a plague of corruption, interfering in the criminal justice system, and attempting to silence anyone who raised concerns about the misuse of funds, including $30 million pounds, they had it, to help the islands fight against the coronavirus pandemic. He claimed that the BVI government has deliberately delayed legal reforms. Delayed legal reforms. Mr. Speaker, the Virgin Islands Party government back then had a legal reform committee which was funded. When the immediate past government got in, it was defunded. The current, the past, the current, and future ages will be affected by it because we were well on a road to legal reforms. Office was had, individuals were engaged. We were well on our way to this, Mr. Speaker, because as I'm saying, if we don't identify these 10 cows in the road, you would not even know how my cow get over here. Mr. Speaker, deliberately delayed legal reforms. And I might say this might well have been why he came. Might have been why he came in July of 2017. Delayed reforms and hindered local inquiries into a string of corruption allegations, including £5 million, I guess that's a $7.2 million, spent on a non-existent airline, and nearly £1 million, I guess this is the $1.5 million, on building a short wall around the school. Tens of millions spent on a hospital and a cruise ship dock are in question, citing concerns about organized crime. He mentioned monies spent seized on open seas within or close to the territory. Mr. Speaker, they went on to say that the BVI businesses, because we have to look at the big picture, because while we bicker at the small picture, this is what we face with. While the public officials are busy pulling 200,000 pieces of paper, the 10 cows out there roaming the road, the next driver is going to be overturned. BVI businesses are black boxes with no public registry of their owners and no duty to publish accounts or pay taxes. Many hold property. In London alone, the real estate held by BVI shell companies is worth billions of pounds. The BVI is an overseas territory where the Queen remains head of state, and the Judicial Committee of the Privy Council in London is still the court of final appeal, following recent clashes over UK legislations designed to limit its activities as a tax haven. The number of incorporations has plummeted, and many on these islands are now calling for greater self-determination. This is a narrative that's being placed out there in the open field, Mr. Speaker. It said, as Brexit continues to shake the foundations of Britain's foreign relations, its ability to protect its territories from censure has been diminished. The onus is now on RAB to convince the EU that corruption will be stamped out. Mr. Speaker, we continue to face, and we have to come together, because while the parties opposite talk about unity, they will tat, and you can't tit, because as soon as they tat, they come out on public radio and say this is not a tit for tat game. But they don't stop. They continue. And this is what I'm saying. Honorable Speaker, honorable member, my honorable colleague called crab in a bucket. If it was only that, it would have been probably be able to deal with it. It's international warfare. And the honorable member, the honorable leader of opposition spoke about whether or not he is sent, whether or not he is given script to read. Well, when I'm finished with my DNA kit, I can identify whether it is him or somebody else speaking. Sometimes I don't know, Mr. Speaker. Sometimes I don't know. Because when you look at the global tax reform, it says that 130 countries commit to minimum corporate rates. It says that, and this is coming from the global economy, this is a widely held publication. This came out in July of 2021, Mr. Speaker. In a landmark moment for the world economy, the Organizations of Economic Cooperation and Development issued a statement committing each of the countries to a two-pillar plan to radically reshape the global tax system. Mr. Speaker, it speaks of the principle of the agreement is that multinationals would be forced to pay a minimum of 15% tax in each country they operate in. It also includes plans to prevent the shifting of profits into tax havens by tech giants and other multinationals by enabling signatory countries to tax the world's largest companies based on revenues generated within their borders. Mr. Speaker, it goes on. I am pulling excerpts from the publication because it is quite detailed. It says details contained in the OECD statement confirmed an exemption. I'll start that over. Details contained in the OECD statement confirmed an exemption for financial services and natural resources companies as part of the Pillar 1 agreement. Financial firms and mining giants will, however, be subject to the minimum tax rate. The United Kingdom Chancellor, Rishi Sunak, had pushed for the City of London to be excluded from the global tax overhaul amid concerns it would undermine the UK financial services industry. I don't know if we got that last part. The United Kingdom Chancellor pushed for the City of London to be excluded from the global tax overhaul amid concerns it would undermine the United Kingdom financial services industry. Mr. Speaker, sir, I am asking you, if it is going to undermine the financial services industry in the United Kingdom, what would it do to the services in the British Virgin Islands? Who will be speaking for us in this regard? Are we pawns on the table of chess? I don't know all the chess players. Who's the chess player in the group? What members of the chessboard are we? Mr. Speaker, we have a lot of important issues that are immediately ahead of us, and the proverbial 10 cattle that I have found might well be just the tip of the iceberg. Can I ever get past this treacher road ever again? We have to identify where the cows are. I have found 10. There must be more, Mr. Speaker, because the roads are slippery. Even if I get the car overturned, how slippery will be the roads? Mr. Speaker, when we spoke in the House the other day, I was appalled that the senior member of the House, together with the 60 years of experience on the other side, was telling the House that they wanted to amend a properly constructed and brought before the House motion, and they wanted to amend it on the fly. They said that you are a government that have changed things, push buttons, and make things happen. You can change this right now. You can go ahead and amend the motion so that we don't have the acting director or the substantive deputy director to act for another 6 months. You can make a director one time. And I said that this is so ludicrous that it has to be cheap political points, because the two dangers of this is that if they were serious about it, I was scared because it could not be right. And if they were basically just grandstanding, then you want to teach the 7 or 8 of us who have not been to this house before. This is what you want us to believe that can happen? I had my honorable colleague from the night sit before the Commission of Inquiry, and he was grilled. He was blaming me because he says that I had woken the sleeping dog. I woke up the sleeping dog because I don't like dogs that I have engaged to mind my house and in my house sleeping. Wake up the dog. Let sleeping dogs lie. I asked the question before. Who should do the barking? So he is blaming me now for waking up these dogs. And when he went in, they were after him. What were they after him about? They were telling him that he followed no process in bringing the first motion to the House to have the very same director made to be acting director. The deputy director acting to be acting to act as the substitute director. And he had to walk with his proof. He had to walk with mace because his dog was after him. He had to mace the dog. He had to tell him, look, I have the documents. The board of directors, they basically recommended, they interviewed, they recommended, and just as I had stated, once the board of directors recommended to the minister then was empowered by statute, by act, by the very same document to bring it to cabinet. Cabinet was then empowered to review it. And if it fit, if it was in order, then they will pass it, send it on to the House of Assembly. House of Assembly will examine it. And if there were any other areas other than the fact that they don't think that anything government do is right anyway, so they will find some way to basically bore holes in it. I have found only one issue, of which the 3 parties, I called them the tri-party one time, they did not like this, so I said, okay, the 3 parties. The 3 parties opposite that makes up the opposition, they only came together in these past 31 months on one issue. That is to amend a document in an improper way. And then the leader of the opposition is going to tell me that I'm trying to silence him. I'm not trying to silence anyone. I'm saying that if you're going to teach me a lesson, then teach me the correct lesson. This is not the way to amend a particular motion. You cannot forget about the process. This is what the COI has just taught us. Just 24 hours ago, the member came out shaking, wanted to know, well, what did I do wrong? Well, nothing, Minister. You did it all right in terms of getting this done. We have to understand that when you look at all of what this country faced, Mr. Speaker, open registry, economic substance, global tax reform, Brexit, Hurricane Irma, Hurricane Maria, high-level frameworks, RDA and the wide sweeping scope of which we have amended some of it, but we still have a number of issues to defend on how it was done, why it should have been done. The global pandemic and a commission of inquiry based on an 1880 thing. I researched because I have to do some more research on this. This act was passed on July 29th, 1880. July 29th, 1880. So could it be fair to us? Because was it who were the ones in power at the time? Was it Faulkner? No. Was it Bruce? No. Was it Fonseca? No. Was it Penn? No. Was it any of those persons of whom we could not relate? The answer was no. Mr. Speaker, history, I'll have to go back because I want to know who all were in the administrative positions when this was passed, what positions they held, and whose interests they were looking at, because it is what we have to deal with. And the monies that we put in the budget in order to get these laws reformed was basically disbanded. And we put back in, we replaced, we voted back in this administration, the monies to restart the Law Reform Commission. So good news, these will be addressed. Mr. Speaker, we have a problem because, yes, the ports at West End must be rebuilt. We have gone as far in terms of the 60 somewhat million dollars. And we have said to the particular CDB that we know you have an obligation to all of your funding authorities to make sure that they get a quote unquote a chance to bid on each and every one of these projects. But we've said to them, we have a commitment because we are the ones who are going to repay these loans. So what did we do? We moved the amount of monies that would be quote unquote bid in international fashion, I might add, from about 1.5 or 2. I'm not going to be held to the exact number, but we moved it to where the threshold will now be $5 million. This is why a number of the projects that we are doing under this could be internationally bid, but locally procured. Because the rules, the bar has not been dropped as it related to what thresholds they have to do it. And this in itself is causing an issue because in my considered view, and it's only mine alone this time, the particular, some of the points, when you look at seasoned contractors who have built complex structures, complex projects, they're telling them that they don't even qualify to 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 uh, to 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 make the short list. Because why? They may not have crossed two of the 25 T's, 3 of the 100 I's. But at the end of the day, they have an organization that have worked, have performed, have done this. So at least the opportunity for them to be on the short list, because we are the ones who have to pay it back. So even with the monies over the $5 million, if there is such a provision where at least 25% of the companies, at minimum, 25% of the companies qualifying for the shortlist must be local companies who have substantive backings, because at the end of the day, you can make sure a person fail by giving them the job to which you know they cannot succeed. It is a poem, and all the poetry writers will know that Jane Cortez, I think it was, who says they made sure you could not succeed. Why? Because they made sure they did not teach you. You want to break for 15 minutes, Honorable Speaker? Okay, fine. I have 15 minutes remaining. Okay.
Continue, sir.
Okay, fine. So the fact is that you have a case where all local contractors have built all of these fantastic structures. We cannot have the international agencies exclude our people out. There are going to be times, because at the end of the day, there are funding requirements that are required in this job. We cannot lower the bar to where, because in some cases, some of the particular recipients, they might come back and say, well, look, we don't have any money to start. But if you don't have any money to start, you're going to be in trouble in the first instance. So this is where some of this then becomes an issue. If you don't have the correct personnel where you can manage the project, have it properly scheduled, properly engineered, properly supervised, then you are going to get in trouble. And there's only so much a government can do in terms of what it is. We can bring you to the table, but you have to make sure that your cutlery, you have the right set of cutlery. You cannot have filtered soup and be given a fork. You'll starve. So at the end of the day, the seat at the table has to be properly placed with the correct tools. And we are prepared because, Mr. Speaker, we have to get this done. So when you hear members going out there and heightening the expectation of the public only because they know that some of these must be challenged in terms of the funding availability until we get certain things straightened out, only because they know that if you displace 70 and to 80 million dollars, then you will be challenged cash flow wise, only because they know that these could not have been done because you were shut down for 18 months thereabouts. So at the end of the day, when you come and you say, well, why wasn't this done? You promised this in 2018 or early 2019. We've had circumstances where we had commitments and we were not, we have avoided, Mr. Speaker, going into some of the challenges we faced, even coming into government, because at the end of the day, the sheep will continue to fear the wolf only to be eaten by the shepherd. All people have a belief that some people cannot be wrong. They have another belief that some people could never be right. The sheep will continue to be eaten by the shepherd and leaving the wolf hungry. But, Mr. Speaker, we will come to a time when this is corrected. How much time do I have, Mr. Speaker? I just need to wrap up on 2 or 3 issues.
Started at 6:30 and it's now 7:22.
Okay, fine. I wouldn't take all the time, Mr. Speaker. But let's just say, the Ministry of Health and Social Development, we came in with an aggressive platform only because, as I'm saying, in March, I was afforded the opportunity to help guide the particular areas of the Ministry of Health and Social Development. Mr. Speaker, we have accredited the Dr. D. Orlando Smith Hospital. The HSA is actually accredited. We have had challenges. We've had to, a number of the programs that we had in place had to be put on halt. We had transferred the 3rd floor of the hospital into a COVID unit. And thank God we did, Mr. Speaker, because when we had that upsurge, we had upwards of 31 persons between the special unit ward created, between the ICU quarters, between the emergency room, and we are constructing out a special unit for pandemics to come, because they are here. They're mutating. We now have mu, and we have a number of issues that we have to deal with, Mr. Speaker. So there we are. We have had about 80 to 81,000 lab reports that were issued by our certified laboratory. The staff and members of the HSA have gone above and beyond. Mr. Speaker, there is a global shortage of health professionals, and I'm talking about global. So I can't say global and say throughout the world. Global is throughout the world. There's a global issue when it comes to maintaining. The United States, they are continuing to offer thousands of dollars for people just to sign up. We don't care where you come from. Just sign. Here is some money, and here is a salary you cannot refuse. So we have a number of retirees. Say, for instance, in the Nurse Iris O'Neill clinic, we have a number of retirees. We have a person who has been there for many years. She become a stalwart in the community. And Mr. Speaker, on her retirement, we will make sure that that the community recognize her efforts. We opened the particular Nurse Iris O'Neill, the new particular quarters up there. We've spent over $5-6 million. I am continually telling them that we cannot spend this kind of money and not have it fully operational. Were we impeded by the lockdowns? The answer is yes. We still have other areas in the fire protection area that I am being told that has to be finalized in order for us to move in substantively. We have a number of equipment that has been put in place, Mr. Speaker. The urgent care part of this is a must. In fact, the premier, even up to yesterday, because he says to me, your colleague in the night, they're being attacked. They're being attacked because we have to get the urgent care. We have to make sure that the monies that we have expended on the particular unit, that we have it up, we have it running. But no one wants to identify where these 10 cows were. They talk as if there was nothing, Mr. Speaker, that occurred in the past 18 of the 31 months that we were here. We will have these things fixed. We will make sure that the North Sound Clinic has a constant and acceptable schedule. We are challenged, Mr. Speaker, all through the particular authority. The CEO has sent me a list. I can't even read it off because it might scare everyone away. But the fact is that she sent me a list of stuff because I'm saying to her, we have a new board. We have very capable, and we have to thank the entire board of immediately reconstructed board, because they were given the short end of the stick. They were engaged for a 2-year period, and of the 24 months that they had, 18 of them were in lockdowns. They could not perform to maximum, Mr. Speaker, because we have issues, and we will get these things completed. We'll get it fixed, because healthcare has to be paramount for all of us. So, Mr. Speaker, the HSA will be a shining. We have trained 25 persons for the administration of the rapid tests, Mr. Speaker. So, come Monday, we're going to be placing the rapid test apparatus down in the West End port, so that fully vaccinated persons transported by fully vaccinated captains and crew can come into that port, and then we can then have activities reestablished. We went and we trained a number of persons in Jocelyn Dyke, only to be challenged because they had a lot of tourists there, and we had to put a halt on it because we had some issues with some of the persons themselves having to be quarantined after being tested. Mr. Speaker, that will be corrected. We would have the operation starting in Jocelyn Dyke also, so that fully vaccinated passengers transported by fully vaccinated crew can come also into Jocelyn Dyke directly. Mr. Speaker, it will be done for Virgin Gorda. The team has already been trained with the rapid tests, and they're administering it as we go. So persons going out, they don't necessarily, if the place where they're being transported to, Mr. Speaker, if those places accept the rapid test, then they'll be able to be administered in Virgin Gorda, administered in Anegada, and we've trained and we've engaged a number of persons. We're going to seek to engage more as required. I have informed them that at the end of the day, tourism is our mainstay, and we are on a road to fixing the particular portal. We're on a road in terms of making it done. But I must explain, because folks look at other places and see they have 5 and 6 and 7,000 positives. They have a number of debts and so forth. And they wonder, well, how did we, up until July 3rd, keep us down? Well, let's say, how many ways can I say $70 million? How many ways can I say that we had to make sure that those persons coming in were not issuing fake vaccination cards or fake PCR tests, that they were, we spent money, Mr. Speaker, in terms of accommodations for persons. We spent money in terms of the particular programs for feeding and for administrating the particular nourishment for folks. We spent money on security around every single person. We spent money in building out the particular arrival port in East, at the Terrence B. Letcham International Airport. We still have monies outstanding that we must pay, and we will pay, because the folks are hurting, Mr. Speaker, so that we can then get that done. We spend money there. We spent money, Mr. Speaker, in terms of taxi, having free shuttle back and forth from the airport to the quarantine area to the particular place. All of this is money, Mr. Speaker, that we had to spend, and this is why we had it down. We then got a shipment. The United Kingdom government pledged that they will supply all of the vaccines required in order for us to administer for every person who qualified for it. And since it was AstraZeneca, then it was 18 and above. And the biggest problem we have is that a number of persons have took it upon themselves that they will not take it, but they will make sure that nobody else who they could influence will take it either. And they're the very persons who will come and tell you, well, you don't care about them, because they're persons who generally cannot take the vaccine because of what the doctors have ordered. So they have to be very mindful. But there's some other persons who have made a conscious decision that they will not. And at the end of the day, we have our economy that we have to balance. We have to open. We have to do this, and so forth. We have, in the report that will come tomorrow, we have cases already beginning to develop in areas where we will wish it not to develop. But, Mr. Speaker, once we open, we have to live with this. The best protection against the coronavirus is vaccination. It will lower our particular hospitalizations. It will lower our the instance of where our morgues have to be used. It will lower the grief and pain that families have. Folks are taking this, they're getting infected, and then they're saying, if I knew, I would have taken it earlier. Too late at the time. So we admonish everyone to give yourself a fighting chance, Mr. Speaker. And as I'm saying, because my colleague correctly stated in terms of making sure that the correct cadre of professionals are placed on Jocelyn Dyke. So the doctor situation is a must in terms of what we have to face. But, Mr. Speaker, we're not only there alone. Come next week, we would be finished with the preparation at HM Prison in making sure that we have all of the protocols established. We are building a particular visitors area where the particular inmates would be protected, because there is going to be a particular barrier set so when the loved ones come, they can safely have conversations without the particular challenges, because we cannot afford for the virus to penetrate or wall up there at the particular HM prison. It is not going to be suitable for persons not to have visit their particular families. We are working around the clock and getting this done, and we're making sure that come next week, they have been asked to hurry up and then do it. We must congratulate our new superintendent of prison, Mr. Guy Hill. We were adamant that we have enough skills within our territory to get a person who is skilled, a person who is prepared. And this was not based on just the fact that he was, quote unquote, have a certificate of birth from the Virgin Islands. He has prepared himself. He is able, he is capable, and he will be given all of the support in making sure that the prison is administered properly, that the reform that is required up at the prison is done. He has a well planned out particular program. He's going to be supported in this. And, we already have 2 or 3 persons who, for the first 6 months or for the next 6 months, 9 months, will be able to look in terms of what reforms and the funding required so that we can get the proper reform at the prison will be put in place. It is being done, Mr. Speaker. And when you look in terms of what is going to be done at the transitional homes that we have, Mr. Speaker, the uh, all of these centers are very important. We have signed with a very reputable company based on the procurement rules. We have signed with a UK company who will come in and then look in terms of getting the transformation done at the Pocket Pond, Virgin Gorda, Anegada, and the Jocelyn Lake facilities for the proper handling of solid waste, Mr. Speaker. This this contract was signed. You will hear more about it. You have already been engaged in some parts of it. The bulk waste around our entire territory is unacceptable. A number of members spoke about this before, but this is going to be addressed in the I think it's about 10 or 12 packages that are out there for bid, and the persons who are going to be removing the particular bins will now be empowered to clean up around each of the particular areas. It will not take away the responsibility, Mr. Speaker, of all of the persons or residents who continue to be less than forthcoming in terms of pride. Pride has lost its way in the Virgin Islands to some large degree when it comes to the disposal of solid waste. We must regain it in order for us to assist in terms of getting this done. Mr. Speaker, the folks at the waste management, they have gone above and beyond. And every time they see me, they want to know, well, or hazardous pay down at the particular incinerator because all of your waste come to us, and we are short staffed in some regards. We are affected, and we must be recognized for it because and I agree with them. We have challenges, and I agree with them. And we so have to take our hats off to the solid waste department, to our particular team, because they go above and beyond the call of duty to make sure that, as best as they could, they're not assisted by those persons who are intent and they cannot bear to see a cleaned dump area. They go and they just take it out, and sometimes they just deliberately miss the bin just to make sure that around it is looking in the way that they feel is is for them. It they the Waste Management Act will come to the forefront, and this will be done. Or so Mr. Speaker, I'll take just 5 more minutes. I'll say that I cannot go and without giving credit to our entire team here at the ministry, our entire team at public health, our entire team at environmental health, our teams in community health, our teams in terms of the next month will be the actual emergency ward in terms of the teams of the emergency team, response team, the teams at the lab, the team, all of these in the all of these teams are working together, and we have challenges. Do we have challenges? Yes. Are they being worked on? Yes. Would they be solved? I will do my very best. We have a strong team, and as you know, when you look at the ministry, when you look at all of these departments, you have a number of persons who've served 25 years, 30 years, 40 years. So we will make sure that we have proper planning for persons coming in. We have to get a number of legislations put in place, Mr. Speaker, and these legislations will help us. Now, I welcome the law reform program being put back in place. We have a number of laws within the particular health and social development. or we have two posts that we've created, one being filled by Mrs. Patrona Davies, who basically is in charge of bringing the social development acts and laws into place. One being placed for the public health. We must get these legislations in. We have a number of things that we must do. Mr. Speaker, I was in basically on the note that we've also asked the RDA to help us to formulate the requests for proposals or the conceptual plans surrounding the Adina Donovan home and making sure that we can then get a proper facility built. It is envisaged, and we'll come to the public with it. The Spooner Estate development, we would think it is best suited, Mr. Speaker, and we'll come to the public with it because we have to take better care of our mentally challenged. We have to take better care of our substance abuse or substance challenged folks. We must take better care, Mr. Speaker, of those, the indigents that are amongst us and so forth. We must, Mr. Speaker, I, you know, I, I applaud the works, especially by all of us. But when I look at the work done by a member for my colleague on the 6th and my colleague in the 6th and 7th combined, I am telling you, I think that everyone in need find the two of them, and I'm telling you that they find all of us. But I know it because I know who come to me most, and I know the circumstances that they come under. And we have to find ways in which we can help those persons who cannot help themselves. We have to find ways in terms of those who have fallen off the track in terms of a number of other issues. And I think that we can do it. It will take for resources, but we must be able to then go out to the world because there are philanthropists all over the world with different interests, those with different interests, and we cannot do it alone. We do not have all the monies to do this all alone. So all of the donors that have helped us to build in the hospital and the healthcare system, I will be calling them by name, not here, not now, but we recognize all of the donations that we have received. We would be making sure we do just by them in terms of recognition. Some of these folks don't do it. Well, none of them do it for the recognition publicly. They do it as a matter of caring about the Virgin Islands, and of this I applaud. There are a number of issues, Mr. Speaker, and I would like to say to us, let us not get weary in well doing. We have a number of issues that we have to face. I am going to just dismiss some of the areas, some of the comments I heard earlier because I know that they know better. I know they know better, Mr. Speaker, but we will get the community centers built. We will get all of the issues done. I implore all members listening, all members of the public listening, to do your part in making sure that the what we have 17,000 persons. We have 14,000 persons now, 14,500 fully vaccinated, and we have another 2,892 who, when they are fully vaccinated, will be able to will be able to bring our numbers up to 56 or 57%. Mr. Speaker, this is critical that we do this so that we can then get our countries open. Mr. Speaker, on Monday, 6 September 2021, the acting chief medical officer reported on the presence of the Mu variant in the territory. The World Health Organization on the 30th of August 2021 designated variant with lineage B1621.1 as the Mu variant and a variant of interest. While the Mu variant shares mutations that have been associated with immune escape and resistance to vaccines in other variants, the World Health Organization continues to study the possible impact of the Mu variant. The significance for the territory is that we cannot become wary in well doing. it is important for us to build on the momentum and current vaccination coverage to continue to enhance vaccination levels in the territory. Special emphasis is required, particularly with regards to persons who are vulnerable, persons who have chronic diseases, which may increase the severity and impact of the coronavirus infection if they were to become infected. The United Kingdom government continues to make vaccines available to the British Virgin Islands, and the government of the Virgin Islands continue to make vaccines available to the citizens at no cost. Residents are therefore encouraged to avail themselves of the opportunity to become fully vaccinated against COVID 19. Secondly, it is important that we all continue to promote and take responsibility to adhere to the public health measures already in place for our safety. These are the basis of our mitigation and control of COVID 19 in the territory, on top of which all other measures are layered. The Ministry of Health will continue to work closely with the police, the Public Health Unit, the Environmental Health Unit, and the Social Distancing Task Force to promote and enforce these measures. For the week of 11 July to 28 August 2021, 2,258 businesses were inspected. Several tickets were issued to 5 businesses, totaling $6,000. Several persons were fined for breach of measures, and a ticket issued for breach of quarantine in the amount of $10,000. Thirdly, the Ministry of Health will continue to follow the developments as it relates to the variant of interest MIR. Residents are urged to always follow information from reputable sources, including the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control in the United States of America, for information on the MIR variant. In conclusion, the British Virgin Islands continues to balance lives and livelihoods as we continue to navigate the COVID-19 pandemic. Schools have been recently opened, and Cabinet is in active discussions about the resumption of cruise industry in as safe a manner as possible. I therefore ask residents to continue to be vigilant and stay safe. Mr. Speaker, and finally, before I go again, we today completed our last trip to St. John's, United States Virgin Islands, because of a program which the Premier had started with the Governor, Brian. And today I meet with Deputy Governor Roach in St. John on our final of this leg. Deputy Governor Roach have actually committed to bring in the concept of being able to further access the actual Pfizer vaccines for school-aged children. We will be exploring this to make sure that this can happen, because we must make every possible chance of getting this done. In addition, the United Kingdom government have said that we would look in terms of, as quick as possible, getting the Moderna vaccine accessible here in the Virgin Islands, and we are making foot to make sure that this is done. We, if possible, will get both the Pfizer and the Moderna accessible right here on the territory. But in the interim, we'll find ways in which we can get or the persons who cannot qualify for the AstraZeneca to be able to have access to Pfizer and access to any others that we will work on. So this is why, Mr. Speaker, I was absent for a little bit, but I had to take the trip down to St. John's to make sure that we can then have show our expression. We have a number of hard-working persons who are responsible for this. You will hear more about these persons who were behind the scenes and making this happen. Because it is one thing to say you want this done, but you will never know the volume of work that has to be put in place in order for this to be done. So I want to thank all those involved, from those who were actually able to negotiate from the U.S. Virgin Islands side and to make it happen from our side, and to all of the parents who voluntarily had their children and or their particular school-age persons vaccinated. I say thank you for doing your part and making sure that this happens. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.